Hey, it's News from Heaven. Maybe you've been watching this show for a while, and you said to yourself, I'm going to recommend this to my friend. And your friend comes in because you say, this is not that weird. It's kind of, they're sort of rational-ish, and it's going to be fun. And then your friend comes and watches this episode first. Because we're going to go a little off the beaten path in this one. Do evil spirits cause misfortune? And this subject material is not daunting for us, but what we're going to do is go into Swedenborg's Journal of Spiritual Experiences, the raw data behind all of the outpouring of books about the nature of life and metaphysics and all that he put out. And this is so cutting edge that you can't even download the book. I'm just working off of a PDF, but you can certainly get the book Spiritual Experiences for yourself. We're going from number 4285, and like and subscribe, leave comments, let me know. But even though there's, we got to go into the sort of Wild West of Swedenborg's writings, the question is very potent. What leads to the bad things that happen in life? Isn't that a tripping point or a sticking point or a something point when we try to say, okay, life is good, there is God? Why do these things happen that seem so pointless yet and so destructive? They just seem to be this cold, uncaring, physical reality. So here's Swedenborg's view from the inside of the spiritual side of life on what. And I was doing all this setting up because I don't know if I know exactly what he's talking about in this one, because you got to see so it's his notes to himself, so they're not as clear. He doesn't take the time to make them as clear, and then it's translated from there. And I've seen translators' notes on this kind of stuff. It's like this is very hard to tell what he's talking about here. So we're going to go through this together because there may be diamond in this rough here. And look at how we begin here. The whole world of spirits is becoming and has become worse and worse. Now, take heart. This is in, I don't know exactly when he wrote this, but this is in the 1700s. So it could well be it's improved since then. But people are making negative choices. People are loving negative things. They go live in the world of spirits after they die. That pollutes the spiritual air that we all breathe, has consequences for us as well. I thought to myself, under the guidance of angels, about a certain evil that had befallen me. So we've got something bad happen in Swedenborg's life, which the spirits almost unanimously attributed to me. So we've got Swedenborg here. We've got something has happened to him, right? And angels are somewhere up here guiding him. They're guiding his thoughts. He can sense that. But there are also always spirits around Swedenborg, which he says there are around all of us as well. We're just not aware of them. And they are all saying, this is your fault. Whatever bad thing happened, and we never find out in the story, just so you know, what this bad thing is. They say, that's your fault. That's your fault that it happened, and it's because you're evil. It seems to be what they're saying. I wondered how it could be possible, for I was of the opinion that some misfortune was threatening me. Like, well, I didn't want this thing. Then I wondered how it could be that I was the cause of it, when yet I knew that I am not in the least led by myself, but to evil by evil spirits, and to good by the Lord through the angels. And this in the very least things of all, there being not the minutest detail in which I am not led, this I knew from multiple experience of long duration. So his whole trip into the spiritual world, he learns the greater causes that lead to the things in life. And he's saying, look, when there's evil tugging at me, like, sure, I agree to it, but this is evil spirits leading me. This is hell pushing me in this direction. Or it's God and angels pulling me in a good direction. So how come everybody's saying this evil was my fault? He's pondering like the nature of, well, wait, isn't this hell's fault? Didn't they lead me into it? And so we're going to hear the musings and the different groups weighing in. And this I have been the more confirmed by the fact that before this evil occurred, in the physical world, we're assuming, many societies composed of 30, 50, 100, 200 spirits had told me that it had been they who thus thought, willed, did, and flowed in. And this was asserted by societies around me, one after another. So you have these evil spirits saying before whatever, it would be helpful to know what this evil thing was. Like I said, we're not going to get it. But they're saying, oh, no, we're the ones who made this happen. And they're really bad spirits, and there are a lot of them saying, we did this. Moreover, also the worst spirits were present when it happened. So when this evil thing happened, there were these horrible spirits around, meaning people who just had the sickest, most depraved motives and plans, about whom it was said that the worst ones could not possibly exist. So there's not a lack of evil in the spiritual world around Swedenborg when this happens. Then angels declared through spirits that they could not resist me or compel me to do something that I did not will. For there is such an equilibrium that everyone is held in a balance, so as to be carried along weightless. While I had these thoughts, and the cause of the evil was still being attributed to me, so that it made me unhappy. Spirit. So here you have, this is notes to self. You ever taken notes on things? There's a couple of jumps that he makes in here. There's these really bad spirits here. There are angels saying to him in the proximity of those thoughts of the spirits accusing Swedenborg of the evil, saying, look, even though we're here trying to lead you to good, if there's something that you really want to do, if your force is moving in this direction, we can't force you not to. We can't compel, and we can't make you do something in this direction if you're not looking in that direction. There's a limit, there's an equilibrium that's reached because hell is pushing on us from one side, heaven is pushing. Arrows can do everything, can't they? If this is us in the middle, heaven's pushing one way, hell's pushing the other, so that our little free choices can make a difference, but yet there's also this, like, hell and heaven are trying to push us into things. All the while, Swedenborg is pondering that the cause of the evil was still being attributed to me, so it made me unhappy. Still, these spirits are saying, this is your own fault that this thing has happened, and is bothering him. I was inspired to ponder. You see how this is like, what are we floating around in right now? I was inspired to ponder on how this could happen. When perhaps I had been such, and look, this is cool. When perhaps I had been such from my previous life that it could not turn out differently, thus that it was foreseen, it being the evil here that happened to him, and so to speak predestined, and that I had meanwhile been guided in the meantime, as all people and spirits normally are, through delights, through hopes, to happiness, and this for a long time, as happens in the other life, yet it was foreseen that they would become unhappy. What he's saying here, across the page margin, is, and I was pondering it myself too, and it is kind of disturbing that he feels like, wait, was this bad thing just predestined to happen? That it had to happen, and that all the time that I was leading up to it, even though I went up and down and seemed to be on positive or negative trajectories, I was never going to be able to avoid this thing just because of who I was and the choices I've made. You're on a track and you're going down to this thing is going to happen no matter what. That's an uncomfortable feeling, that you're led through things that can't be prevented. So he's pondering that himself. And here we have, so it's all kind of, this story up to now, it's just all kind of murky. You have the spirits who are accusing Swedenborg of stuff, and he's like, I don't think you're right. You have angels saying some things, but they're kind of cryptic, and they're kind of, a little bit, they're broad principles, they're not specific answers here. He's trying to put together factors, like why, when I know that I'm being led to everything, how could I be the cause of this evil? It's not a clear picture to him at this point. But right here, when he says, it was given me, that's usually when he's getting what he believes is, this is God coming through. This is the truth coming through. So will we get some kind of clarity here? And will it lead us to what is the mechanism that causes misfortune and evil? Finally, it was given me to see that the Lord bends everything toward good. So even whatever thing was going to happen in Swedenborg's life, the Lord is going to bend that to, in the end, it benefiting Swedenborg and everyone else involved. But that the world of spirits is so evil that it is turned into evil, it being this bending towards good, and is becoming worse and worse, so that the balance is shifted to their side. And that since the world of spirits is such, it cannot happen otherwise than that mankind becomes worse through the world of spirits flowing in. So if we go back here, first of all, to our equilibrium picture, frame that, put that in a museum somewhere. He's saying that the balance, let's say this side is hell, that because so many people are choosing hellish things in the state of the world of spirits, this is actually encroaching so that the whole equilibrium has to shift this way and hell gains more ground. That seems to be, this is part of why bad things happen, because there's such a polluted atmosphere in the world of spirits. And the world of spirits is a step on the chain that creates consciousness. It's not just like, oh, we're here on an island in the physical world, and you go to a life after death, and there's stuff happening there. But what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's their stuff over here. Think of it more like the world is now. It's so interconnected that when you have some kind of economic collapse somewhere, the rest of the world feels it. Or there's a drought in a major food-producing region, suddenly food prices go up. It's harder to get things. And as we're seeing, you pollute one area, that causes, the climate to shift, and all kinds of things happen it's all interconnected. You can't just anymore think I'm just affecting one part of the world. It's all parts of the world. So then the same extends to the way the spiritual world is. That we just take for granted that we can be conscious beings that can choose and can feel things and recognize things and operate in this little sphere of consciousness. But the steps to get there, part of it is we're getting our consciousness delivered to us through the world of spirits. And if that gets so polluted, that, if the water is polluted, what comes out of your tap is going to make you sick. So the world of spirits has so many people choosing evil that then go and choose the evil again in the world of spirits. It's making it harder for the mechanism to work, for the very delivery system of God's goodness to the world is being interrupted. And that could it be that these accidents are interruptions in the sphere of protective divine providence. Where did I leave off here? Oh, the worse the world of spirits is, the less strong is the good flowing in from the Lord, and the less mankind is able to be bent to goodness. The world of spirits as a whole is just as each spirit and each man in particular. This old translation, so it should say, it should say person there. When it is worse, when it receives less of goodness, and the less evil can be bent to good, the world of spirits being like a general receiving vessel, a spirit and a man being like a particular vessel. So it's saying, again, the pollution in the whole accumulates in the body of the individual. So we are like a little microcosm of this broad situation. So we get less goodness in us, and the less evil can be prevented and bent to good on our individual lives because of the situation with the whole thing. Okay, so I feel like a few more dots need to be connected. I don't know if we're going to connect them. Let's see. These things were told to spirits. So Swedenborg is now educating. We'll go back up to our little... He's saying to these guys who are accusing him of the evil in the first place, no, this is how it works. So what does that teach him? In addition, that it is, okay, and here we get something. It's kind of buried in here, but that it is the reigning evil itself that is the cause of which everyone is a part. It was attributed to all around me symbolically, but because they could not do otherwise since they are spirits, therefore it was abolished. It was said, moreover, that the reigning evil itself is properly the devil, hence the whole world of evil spirits, and hence each evil spirit. So what I think this is saying is that we're looking for, here's Swedenborg again down here, and here's some evil thing happening in his life. There's all these spirits around him, and for this, we'll just draw the evil spirit. These are the evil spirits around him. He said some of the worst evil spirits are around him. And you have the general state of the world of spirits, which is, pretend this is made up of a lot of different spirits here. And then you have the evil itself here. Okay? And he's saying it's the reigning evil itself. This is really the cause. Because so many, but it's like it's a cyclical sort of thing, because so many people have chosen to latch onto and live by evil. That amplifies its power, or it wouldn't have it. And that becomes in the water, so to speak, in the world of spirits. And so then the people who drink from this symbolically in the world of spirits, that moves down into them. And then they are conduits for this evil that then bring it to Swedenborg. He says it was attributed to all around me symbolically. Like, yeah, these spirits that were around said they wanted this evil thing to happen, and they tried to bring it about. But that desire to have it happen came through the world of spirits. And the destruction of the sphere of good that allowed it to happen came through the world of spirits. So in a way, you look at, just like if you look here, why did a particular war happen, or some kind of horrific violence in a particular region of the world? Well, you can say there's the people who are actually doing it, who are on the ground committing crimes. Okay, but then there are the people behind them that ordered them to do it, right? Then there are the people above them who have these sort of plans of, this is what I want to do. But then there's like, what are the other? There's a poverty in that area. There's destabilization because of history. There's all these layers back. They're all contributing. And Swedenborg is saying, in the world of spirits, it goes that way too. But in maybe a more direct chain, even, where there's this evil that because of everybody who chooses it has this power to influence people. Then those people bring it to bear. But it's actually the evil itself. If we go back to the pollution metaphor, it's like, yeah, whatever, it's the people dumping this stuff in the water that cause it to be there, but the actual damage is done by whatever molecule or whatever heavy metal or whatever's in the water. That's what actually gets into you and does the damage. Then, so look at that. So there he seems to have some explanation of, why did this bad thing happen? It wasn't because of me. It was really because that's the state of things. You certainly see this, like in that war example that I had before. You think of people who are in some part of the world where this sort of lawlessness takes over, and their village or wherever they're living is attacked, and they have their lives ripped apart. Was that, just looking on the physical level, did that have anything to do with them? This was a casualty of the depraved state of the world in general, because all these evils linked together. You have the bloodthirsty nature of the people there, you have the greed, but you also have these other, extending back to the people who have interest in that region, and then the general evils of the world that were not interested in making sure everybody's safe and happy, but really pursuing our own greed in a lot of ways, and looking for power, and this tears apart the fabric that should lead to people being happy and safe. And so all that contributed, and those people suffer for it. And that all the time we get swept up in these things that are larger beyond our control. So it comes back to Swedenborg, and he's saying, why did this thing happen? And the spirits want to say, well, this is your fault. Maybe they're saying you're inept and you should have prevented it. Maybe they're saying you're evil and you deserved it. Whatever they're saying, we don't know what the actual thing was. The actual answer is, this is the price of evil. It's evil's fault. Through a million steps, it's evil itself that causes this. But the more that we choose evil, the worse we make it, because it's only because so many people in the world of spirits were choosing this that they were able to disrupt the signal of goodness. God is here trying to bring order and happiness. The accidents don't just happen. They're always the product of evil, because God is trying to send out a sphere of total order. Doesn't that look like total order? Total order, where you'd never scrape your knee, I don't think. That everything would work just how it's supposed to, but evil gets in there, disrupts that. And now we move into this fascinating kind of debate between Swedenborg and these spirits that were around him, causing these problems. So he's just said, hey, look, it's the evil itself. I mean, you guys around were complicit in it, but you're sort of chess pieces in this larger game. They said, then the same thing would apply to them, because it is so that it flows in from the whole evil of the world of spirits. Thus they are not to blame. And it is the same with people on earth, that all things flow in, nor are they to blame, and that the case is the same as with me. So they're saying, oh, okay. So even though we tried to make this thing happen and wanted to make it happen, it's not our fault. There's just evil. Evil's coming through. And Swedenborg's not going to let them get away with that, which does show us another wrinkle in how this is. But I was prompted to reply that if they believe or acknowledge that it is true, they are not doing it from themselves on their own power, and they must then be guiltless and free of the evil. But if they do not acknowledge and believe this is so, but that they are acting from themselves and on their own, then they are to blame, and the evil cannot but be appropriated to them. The it here is this whole thing we just learned here, right? The it is that there's a giant evil that flows through in the chain of command and the way people affect each other, leading to that. So they're saying, oh, if that's really true, it's not our fault. And Swedenborg is saying, the difference is you don't really believe that. And this is a fascinating Swedenborgianism here. He says that you don't really believe that. To how it seemed to you, you were doing this thing, and you wanted to do it, and you did it on your own power. And that is, in a vacuum, you loving the outcome of this. To you, it seemed like you really were the full cause of this, and you went with it. You loved it, you grabbed onto it, and you really acted as if it had really been you, you would have acted the same way. Doing that makes you a complicit part of it. Even if you didn't realize you were part of a larger chain, that you're in it. You're part of it. But if you had realized, like, okay, look, this is a bigger thing. It's pushing me to do it. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a part of this, even if sometimes I can't help it. That's different. This, he's saying that, here, he actually, I don't need to lay it out for you. He lays it out here. To know by itself is not to acknowledge and declare and want it to be so, in order to be held blameless, and not to acknowledge accomplishes nothing. So if you're saying, if you have this concept, oh yeah, it's not my fault, it's just evil's fault, but you don't actually believe everything that comes with that evil is bad, that God is good, that we shouldn't be pushed around by evil to do things. If you don't actually like that, want it to be so, and understand that evil is something that is to be pushed away, if you're just doing it, saying, okay, I don't really believe it, but I'll know it and say it in order that I don't get in trouble for it. Can you tell, like, you're just manipulating the system? Oh, I don't want to be in trouble for this. Oh, yeah, it was just that. But you don't really believe it. And you don't really believe the context behind it. That doesn't do anything. It's a far-fetched argument outside of themselves that's not valid in their case. Motive. Isn't that when we go into courts of law, it's all about motive. What were you trying to do? Even if you didn't realize that, even if you do, the way we do it in courts here, even if you couldn't get away with it, you can be charged with trying to do something. Attempted murder. Even if you don't do it. What were you trying to do? What was your intent based on what you believed? That matters. And if you just say, oh yeah, well, it turns out I wasn't, what were you trying to do in the moment? That's what makes us who we are. What are we meaning to do based on what we believe? But if they acknowledge and believe, if you acknowledge and believe that evil drives you to evil and goodness drives you to good, that it's not just, oh, I'm the master and source of everything, then they're separated from evil spirits and come to good ones. Then they are ruled by goodness, that is, by the Lord. And this could be the reason why we would wade through this whole thing, is if he's saying, who knows, I was like, what should I highlight in that? I'll just do the golden parentheses. If you believe this, that when you're in evil, you're just a slave to this system of evil, that it's not really the kind of free, good life you should be living, then that allows God to pull you out of that. Because if you're grabbed tight onto, okay, this evil thing came in and I love it and I'm doing it, don't get in my way. Remember before, these angels were saying, and this seemed just like a frivolous comment at the time, but the director of this knew what he was doing, says, angels said, they can't resist me or compel me to do something that I do not will. So, you have these spirits, unless you say, oh, I want to be free from this evil system, and that I actually am open to the idea that I'm being led by evil into more evil. If we detach from that, if we let go of that with our spiritual hands, then they can move with us. But until we do that, we can't. So, something about all this, about this crazy, kind of out there, opaque at times, description of how evil and good work and what leads to the kind of accidents we would all love to be able to avoid, realizing that it's true allows, and liking the idea that God is actually trying to pull us out of there and organize things in the right way, that lets the angels grab us, pull us through that equilibrium into heaven. And that's what we're trying to do. That's the news from heaven. So a lot to chew through here. I would imagine we'll get some comments, right? Of did it make sense, or do you have some questions about it? Do you have some insights? We'd love to hear from you, because we love hearing from you. Hopefully, even moving through this, you can get something that will brighten your day or inspire you to look for the next thing. Because it seems here like knowing how things really stand sets you free. And if this is a piece of knowing how things stand, let's get it in, let's start working through it. And can it set us free? This is part of the way you litmus test this stuff. This idea, let it roll around in your mind. Does it ever set you free? Like when negative thinking and negative feeling come in, to say, okay, well, this is just hell trying to push me in this direction. It's not just sourcing from myself, or I should take it as the truth. What does that do? Does it help? And if it does, maybe that's our clue that we're on the right path. Thanks. Hey, how lucky am I get the chance to stumble through this obscure Swedenborg stuff with you guys. This is my dream, and who would have known y'all would want to be part of it as well. Thanks so much. It's been fun talking to you. We'll see you soon.